What a treat it is to have on the podcast today Makenzie Oliver, the host of the wildly popular podcast Teacher Let Your Light Shine and its associated Facebook community. An award-winning public school teacher in both Missouri and Florida, Makenzie decided to leave the conventional classroom to launch her own microschool in 2020. She launched Lighthouse Learning Microschool and Homeschool Hybrid in Longwood, Florida. She now helps other teachers to let their light shine through education entrepreneurship by offering a Microschool Masterminds program and coaching resources, as well as, of course, the Teacher Let Your Light Shine podcast and Facebook community that has thousands of followers. So, Makenzie Oliver, welcome to the Liberated podcast.
Thank you so much, Kerry. I am so grateful to be here. I have read your books. I have also followed your podcast. So thank you for the work that you have done to elevate such an incredible message. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm a huge fan of your work. I hear so many founders say that they got their start in creating microschools and launching various schooling alternatives through your podcast. And so it's really an honor to have you on my show to share a little bit about your story from teacher to founder and now sort of supporter of other founders in this incredible movement. So I'd love to hear a little bit, Makenzie, of your pathway to education in the beginning. What made you decide to go into teaching in the first place?
Well, Kerry, I, like many other teachers, was really truthfully, I feel born to just have this natural desire to teach. And my dad and my mom together, they had helped build a little classroom in our basement when I was a little girl, and all I had ever asked for Christmas was school supplies. Just give me school supplies and find some textbooks from teachers so that I can just be in the classroom and teach. And while all the other kids were out playing in the neighborhood, that's where you would find me for many years, all the way through elementary and middle school. So then I became a teacher in Missouri. My husband and I met there. We moved to Florida. Loved my loved my career as a teacher. So grateful for the opportunities. I got my master's degree, was an elementary teacher, became an instructional coach. And in my time of becoming an instructional coach, I had the wonderful blessing of helping to establish an elementary school. So, along with many other teachers in our community, there was a public school that was opening, and we helped to really break the ground for that. So, my last 2 years in public education had been spent at a brand new elementary school. I was the instructional coach for reading and math, and my time there was incredible. But what I found was I spent majority of my time teaching, really consoling teachers.
Hmm.
And
In what way, Makenzie? What do you mean by that?
brokenness, feeling as if they were tied, feeling as if they couldn't have a breakthrough with their teaching style or what they knew was truly best for children. That was a very pivotal mindset shift for me. Was when I had become an instructional coach. Of course, there were things that I had experienced like that in the classroom as well, but a lot of times your passion can overcome some of those hurdles. And then there comes a point where when you really start to connect with other people, and as I got into more classrooms and coaching other teachers and sitting across the table from many parents now I had a wider lens to look at. And I just found as if, even though we worked for an amazing school and a fantastic A-rated school district, I started to notice that there were patterns, even when I had worked in Missouri with multiple teachers, that we were felt tied to standards. We were felt tied to certain protocols. If we saw a child was struggling, instead of being able to give them the support that they needed on their level, we had to maintain the grade level standardized curriculum. We had to show that they were failing before we could actually give them the help that they needed.
Hmm.
And I have two daughters of my own. My husband and I, we have just found so much joy in raising them. And for many years, Kerry, it's really interesting. When my daughter's 17, and when she was about 2 years old, I told my husband I would love to have a school at our house. But at that time, think about that. This is 15 years ago. And you're thinking, if I'm going to have a school at my house, what comes to mind? A preschool or a daycare. No one's running elementary schools out of their house 15 years ago.
Right, right.
Really, no one's even in the big trajectory of homeschooling their children at that point.
Right.
So, of course, I got really invested into my career, got my master's degree, but that longing never went away.
Hmm.
So, about 10 years ago, as I was really going through the changes in motherhood and watching my daughters grow up, and they're both very bright, very gifted, very joyful. They too enjoyed school, but as my daughter had gotten into upper elementary school, that light started to dim.
Hmm.
And the more the pressure came for the test and the gifted class and how you should perform at a certain level because you have this IQ, or even just the preparation and the things that we know that kids love to do throughout the days of learning were more strapped to desk, strapped to preparing for the standardized test. So I got to thinking with my husband, and we started really brainstorming what could school look like. And at that time, I told my husband, I said, but our daughters are growing up. I guess really the only other option would I could start a preschool in our backyard. I mean, that's when you're going through these cycles of change, you're thinking, what's the least barrier to entry? If I could just start something at my house with my own children, how can we move on and grow from there? So we started doodling and got my daughters really into it. And they drew out what could be Kids Town and kids coming to the house and they're learning, and we're doing entrepreneurship and the kids are building little businesses. But I thought, how could that really happen? Because I'm so invested in my career. How could I leave what's so comfortable and start something different? So sometimes, Kerry, we're just put in these situations in life where we're in this comfort zone, but you've got this aching and this calling. And the only way to get us into that position is for something drastic to happen. So that's when 2020 came around. And when I started homeschooling my daughters with the rest of the world, and they were sewing and we were cooking and we were going on bike rides and we were learning outside, I thought, this is it. This is amazing. I want to keep doing this. But who leaves their career as a teacher to start homeschooling their children? But I wanted to, but I also felt as if I didn't want to do it alone. So I started researching, how could I keep my girls at home? How could I still keep my love for teaching and my passion and that gift, and make sure that they're not lonely in a world that felt so isolated during 2020? And so, literally, Kerry, it started with I called a friend, a teacher friend, and she's who was a principal herself at one point, and she said, I want to send my daughter to you. So she pulled her out of public school, sent her daughter to me. I'm walking out to the mailbox one day, and a lady drops by, a teacher friend of mine. She said, what are you going to do next year with the girls and COVID and school? And I said, well, oddly enough, I just decided last week I'm going to homeschool the girls. I got another teacher friend who's going to send her daughter to me. And she said, I have a neighbor. And then two kids from my neighborhood came. So we started in 2020 in my living room. I had three third graders, three kindergartners, and two seventh graders. And it just continued to grow from there. Year two, we had 12 students. Year three, we had 18 students come to my house every day. The car rider line is wrapping around the cul-de-sac. And then we got a building We've been renting out of a church for the past 2 years. So last year we had 50 students and now we have 100.
Wow. And it sounds like it's not slowing down, just exponential growth here.
Yes, and we've had a
Yeah.
wait list since September. And
Wow.
really what we found was, although we started in our home and it became a micro school, meaning a small school, I noticed that back in 2020, 5 years ago, the word micro school wasn't even a prominent word in this educational industry. Parents didn't know about it, teachers didn't know about it. And as I had started digging, I will say that that first year, although it was thriving, it was beautiful, I did start to feel a little lonely. How can I continue to professionally develop myself? How can I continue to get other teachers who I know they are so burnt out? And we're going to lose really great teachers.
Right.
Like finally my zest for teaching had come back again. Even though I'd always loved it, there was this like a light had just turned on. How can we get this idea out that other teachers, instead of saying I'm finished, I'm going to go into the corporate world, but I'd always had this dream of being a teacher, or I am going to go work at Target because I just want something that is less pressure. I'll become a secretary somewhere. How can we keep teachers that passion, that gift, to keep them wanting to do what they love, but in a way that they have the freedom to do so and do what's best for children? So
I
that's
love
whenever I
that.
had started the Teacher Let Your Light Shine podcast, as I was looking for what are we? Because people are like, are you a homeschool? And well, I am. I homeschool my own kids, but I homeschool other kids. And so we started out as a micro school, found out what that word was. I started the podcast, getting other teachers to know what this was, getting parents. And even though it was mainly for teachers, now we have so many parents, so many educational entrepreneurs, people who've never been in education that are wanting to start a micro school that listen to the podcast. And so many people around the world are adopting this new reinvention of education.
I love it. I want to talk more about your podcast in a moment, but would love to hear a little more about Lighthouse Learning. You said you now have 100 students. It's a micro school and homeschool hybrid. How does it work? How are families utilizing this?
Yes. And you know what's really, really wonderful about being able to create an environment such as this is that we have the flexibility to change how we serve families. So, for an example, the very first year was students coming to our house Monday through Friday. 7:30 they would arrive, end at 3:30. We would go on field trips. The concept of students rotating around literally from my living room to my back porch to my den to the back office. You're going to read with me, then you're going to go work with your peers and do a reading activity, and then you're going to go on the back porch, you're going to do math, and you're going to come back and rotate around to me. So we had this really beautiful way of learning, hands on. We would learn till lunchtime. We would get into a 15-passenger van. We'd drive to the park in my neighborhood. We'd eat lunch out there. We would do science out there. We would do experiments. We would come back. The students would read. We built a garden in my backyard. And then on Fridays, we would go on really great field trips and we would invite parents to come with us. That's how it started year one. Year two, parents started calling and saying, well, I've got this flexible job. Would I be able to homeschool and send my child to you 2 to 3 days a week? So we really paid attention to what the market was
Hmm.
asking us, what the parents' needs were, because as society had changed with the way COVID had changed people's way of working, we were then able to accommodate. And so we would teach Monday, the core academics. Tuesday, we would have homeschooled students come and we would do science and social studies thematic learning. Wednesdays, we'd be back to teaching. Thursdays, those students would come and we would put on plays. We would cook, we would learn about different continents. We would cook foods from those continents. We would do science and social studies. And then on Fridays, we would go on field trips. Same component year three, But year 4 and 5 is where we really started to notice a shift in the demand.
Hmm.
So year 4 and 5, we now have a model that's more of a homeschool hybrid where parents can pick either 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 days. And the way that our model is set up is if children are needing a full-time place for schooling, they can come Monday through Friday. And Monday through Wednesday, we have certified teachers. We teach the core academics. The students arrive at school, they play outside for the first 30 to 45 minutes. We come in, all classrooms have a morning meeting, and then the students are grouped by ability. We have a kindergarten first grade class, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then we've got middle school.
Hmm.
Students are grouped by ability. So instead of saying, well, you're in second grade and you need to learn second grade, we have a very personalized learning approach. So we make sure we know what level our students are on. We adapt the curriculum. We form groups based on their ability, and we circulate through reading and writing and math groups all day long. We do science and social studies in the afternoon. We then have, so those children can come Monday through Wednesday. They can be homeschooled by their parents on Thursdays and Fridays. So we've got a full-time option Monday through Friday. We have come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll teach you your core academics. Go home Thursday, Friday, pursue your family's interest and join horseback riding lessons or go on vacations with your family, learn on the road. And then we have families who say, I want to teach the core academics, but I'd love to send them to you for enrichment days. So our Thursdays and Fridays are enrichment. Students learn Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, core academics. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, we have art, music, PE, STEM, cultural studies, field trips, learning trades, learning different professions, guest speakers, Spanish class, cooking class, nature class. And the students get to enjoy those classes on Thursdays and Fridays, or they can just come on Friday as well.
Oh, sounds amazing. And I love how it was your responsiveness to your local community, to
Yeah.
what the local market wanted in terms of education innovation that enabled you to respond to that in creative ways with all different enrollment options. And of course, the success is in your rising enrollment and your wait list. Clearly, families want this, and there's no shortage of families who are seeking something new and different in your
Right.
area. So it's so great.
Absolutely.
So let's
Absolutely,
let's
Carrie.
turn a little bit and talk about Teacher Let Your Light Shine podcast. I absolutely love your podcast. I especially love how you really are talking directly to these entrepreneurial teachers who you can relate to, right? Because these are, in many cases, teachers who are in a classroom thinking about leaving the profession potentially, as you said, or at least leaving their current job, but they don't really know how to begin to be a microschool founder or launch something in their home, or like you said, more entrepreneurial parents wanting to do the same kind of thing. And you just have such a great rapport on the podcast of kind of speaking directly to them and giving them that encouragement and inspiration to make it happen. I'm curious what you think from your feedback from the podcast and especially your online Facebook community related to the podcast. What are you hearing are some of the biggest barriers to teachers or entrepreneurial parents to getting started? What's holding them back?
Okay, this is really good. And I would say that there are three big components. Okay, let's start with the emotional part first. Many of us, all of us pretty much, who are looking at something different, understand that the best education is not standardized. It's personalized, it's meaningful, it's built around the child. However, the barrier is that most of us grew up in a system that taught us to follow rules, stick to a set curriculum, and prepare for standardization.
Hmm.
We grew up in the industrial revolution system of education. We were not trained to think that education happens outside of desks and rows in certain times of the day with a teacher delivering direct instruction at the front of the room. So when we start thinking about creating something different, these dreams, these visions, this, I wish I could teach like this, or I wish my children could go to a school like this, it feels intimidating because it's unfamiliar. And it feels as if it's a long shot in the dark. So people hear about micro schools and homeschool hybrids, and they love the idea. They know deep down that education should be more about just checking boxes. They see that in their own children. I know that for myself, or their students. They know that children thrive with hands-on learning, interest-driven, connected to the real world. But then the reality sets in. How do I actually do this? So there's that
Mm.
emotional component. And that's the challenge, is that we're not taught to think like educational innovators. We hear that term float around a lot in public education or private education. Let's innovate, but we're never taught how to. And we're never, think about, even whenever I was going to get my college degree, my master's degree, I was never really taught how it could look different. It's here's how you replicate what we've always done. So, how to build learning environments from scratch, or how to trust a child's natural ability to learn without a rigid system in place, that's where I see people get discouraged. They don't know, either one, how to do it, or two, they've got this incredible vision, this amazing idea, but they don't know if other people are going to believe in it. So the truth is, however, Kerry, that we know that we don't have to figure it all out before we begin. And we don't have to have the perfect plan. My husband's like, honey, if 18 families could send their kids to our house, which is not a mansion, which is nothing special, and they believe in education like this, I'm telling you, this is going to change the world. Seriously. And we didn't even know any idea. So then there's that first part of, you've got the idea, right? I have the little sketches in the journals, and my daughters have the little ideas on paper, but can this actually really happen? And can I be responsible for the progress? Can I be responsible for the results? That feels heavy, but there's this desire. So if we can get the courage to take that dream that's inside, that vision that we have, that's our first part. And we need people to believe in us, and we need our voice to be heard, and we need someone to just give us the permission, to give ourselves the permission. So that's number one. That's the emotional part. The second level that I see is the logistical part.
Hmm.
Where? The zoning. Can I start in my house? What if I have an HOA? Will people send their kids to my house? Will they literally pull their kids from public or private school and send them to my backyard?
Hmm.
Or where could I do this without feeling like this cumbersome? How much money do I need to have to go buy a building, rent a building? What are the components, the legalities? What does this look like legally? So of course, I definitely meet teachers where they are with the legalities. There's HSLDA, the homeschool legal defense was very, very helpful. There are also people in your community that can help with zoning. There are buildings and even the liabilities with the insurance, the how do I set up my LLC, those logistical parts that are just very groundbreaking. We're just breaking the ground. We're toiling the ground to plant the seed. We got the seed, we got the idea. Now we have to toil the ground. We've got to begin to put this in a place, this idea in a place where it can actually begin to be watered so that it can grow and to thrive. And I would say that the third component that people have the most difficulty with is the marketing.
Hmm.
How do I get my message out? And how do I talk to parents? How do I network? I don't want to feel salesy. I'm just a teacher. I'm just a teacher with a dream. And I'm not a salesperson. I don't know how to do this without feeling like I'm trying to, you know, have someone sign papers to let me teach their children. How do I go about this? And so that marketing component, people struggling with, I don't want to be on social media. I don't know how to make a website. How do I actually begin communicating with families? How do I get the word out? And so of course there are levels to that as well, but I would say that those are the first three: the dream, and then the logistical part, which of course I would say a component of that logistical part is the financial aspects as well, the legalities, the place, the money. And then the third is the marketing component. Those would be the top three. But I would say that honestly, all of those can feel like such huge hindrances to each of us. And the money part, I know many teachers, many parents who've been in a career where they have had the comfort of a solid income or retirement or benefits. They're beginning to see that that was just a distraction to feeling as if they were not going to be able to make it happen. And everything has been provided through obedience of the calling to do what you feel has been laid a part of your life's purpose to create something that is life changing for not only you, your family, these children, other parents, and the whole community. It's a ripple effect. People are watching. The kids that we serve, they're watching. They're going to remember, I went to this lady's house for school, and she taught me out of her living room. She taught me out of her backyard. And that in itself inspires children to live out their dreams as well. To me, Kerry, it's full circle.
Ah, so great. So Makenzie, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, which is your, 2025 self now running a successful microschool, helping others to run successful microschools in a variety of ways. You talked about how pre-2020 you always had this urge to start something in your home, to create some sort of microschool, even if that language wasn't quite established there. And it really took the, massive disruption to education prompted by COVID to help you take that leap. But if you could talk back to, say, your 2020 self, even without a pandemic,
Yes.
what would you say to have helped you to take that leap?
I would say that the proof right now, Kerry, for a lack of better terms, the proof is in the pudding. We are seeing more and more people successful at doing this. Yes, whenever we began Lighthouse Learning, there was a major disruption. And it felt so hard because the world had closed down. How are people going to feel they can trust my environment, that it's either going to be safe or that it's going to be clean enough? Or how are we going to handle if a child does have COVID? All of those massive fears that we all had during that time of, are people wanting, do people want me to have their children in mask in my house? Do they not want me? So there was that cultural shift, and there started to be a divide in the world at that time. And
Yeah, and I
we
guess
just
I'm
wanted our kids to learn.
I'm just wondering though, even without COVID, right? Let's say COVID never happened, and you were still in as a, a classroom teacher in 2020, but still had that urge. What would your 2025 self now, kind of having been through this and giving all this advice to other teachers, what would have made a difference for you as a classroom teacher to say, oh, that urge, I'm going to listen to that now. Again, with let's say COVID didn't happen,
Yes,
what would have prompted you to make that shift?
seeing other people do it.
Mm,
I really do. Because when I didn't have anybody else who I knew doing it, it felt scary,
yeah,
but I still had to do it in the midst of all of that uncertainty. But now, knowing thousands of people who are doing it and seeing it be successful, I think that would have given me more encouragement and less doubt because I saw other people doing it. But at that time, when the world was really scary and shut down and there was no one else doing it, and I felt lonely and isolated, that's why. If we could make it happen then without any proof in the pudding that it could be successful, now you see them popping up everywhere. I think that that is a huge motivator and encouragement.
right.
Not only that, but to see that there are so many other states that are saying we are choosing and we are giving, let's say, educational savings accounts or vouchers for parents to choose alternative learning.
Right.
When the states are even adopting to give parents the choice to choose other educational alternatives, then absolutely, I feel as if that is another open door to success because we have more avenues, more resources in those components as well. So that would be
Yeah.
the first two is seeing other people being able to do it, knowing that you're not alone, seeing that there
Yeah.
are more opportunities for this to be a very real avenue for families to adopt for their own children. That would be number two. And number three are the foundations and the organizations that are working towards, such as yourself, the LiberatED podcast, the Cato Institute, Vela, Yes Every Kid, so many organizations that are here to help microschool founders and saying, we're going to support you by offering scholarships and grants and free resources to help you to get this idea up and moving. To me, that is what would have motivated me without having this just the disruption of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying, Mackenzie, is, you started sort of out of necessity, you and so many other founders back in 2020 due to this disruption. And now, instead of necessity, it's network effects, right? That's really
Yes.
what's leading founders today, certainly the people in your audience, the people you're communicating with, to launch their own programs. That the network effects of seeing others do it and do it successfully and have a lot of fulfillment from that. And then the network effects from all of these supporting organizations that you mentioned to make it easier
Yes.
for founders to get started. That's certainly how I feel. I feel like we're really just at the very beginning of this movement now because of these network effects. I think it's just getting started. What is your sense?
I believe I'm right there with you in that micro schools are not the future of education. They're the present. They are the present for those who are willing to break free. Micro schools, homeschool hybrids, they are here to stay. This is the new way. And it's really not even an alternative form of education, it's a reinvention
Right.
of education.
Right. So, what would you say, Mackenzie, as we kind of wind down this podcast episode, to encourage, aside from it having listeners and viewers certainly listen to your podcast and join your Facebook group, which is open to all, and connect with you through your Microschool Masterminds program, what would you say are some sort of initial strategies that entrepreneurial parents and teachers should consider to just get started, to just get that initial from idea to launch stage going?
Yes, so good. Well, I would say definitely the good old-fashioned way is go to Target, get yourself a notebook. Okay, get yourself a notebook, and it's the little things. It doesn't have to be anything fancy right now, is start with a piece of paper and a pen and start with your heart and your vision and what what it is that you want and what bothers you about where your children are going to school or what they're receiving that you wish that they had that was different, or you as a teacher, what is it that's keeping you up at night at your current job? What is it that you would love to do if you never had to worry about money but you could keep teaching? What would it look like? What would it feel like?
Mm.
Let's start there. Let's work on our heart. Let's work on the dreams and the plans, and without all the logistics, because there's something special inside of you that needs to be given to the world. The second part is let's do some research right within our network. Let's get into Facebook groups. Let's find homeschool moms near me, homeschool groups near me, alternative education groups near me, micro schools near me. Start getting on Facebook, because a lot of people want to know that they're not alone, and they want to feel seen and heard, and they want to be a part of something. So let's get into some Facebook groups. Let's see what the struggles are. What are you noticing that parents want for their children? What are the frustrations with homeschooling? Are you a teacher and you're noticing in Facebook groups for homeschoolers that the parents are saying, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I need help. Or my child wants friends. They want socialization. I don't know where to go, but I also don't want them to go to public school. Let's start seeing what's around us and what people need. So I would say that's number two, is let's start figuring out what is around us, what is the need around us. And if that feels a little too crunchy or a little too hard, let's start with what resources do I have available? Let's go to hslda.org. What can I do right now? Can I, as a teacher, as a certified teacher, can I homeschool other children? Am I a parent? Can I start homeschooling, but do I need to potentially get with other parents who might want to do something like this? But I don't know how to start a school. I don't know how to start helping teach children, but maybe my friend knows somebody. So let's build a little network and let's get some research going. That would be number two. Number three is let's find out legally if this is something that is doable in your house or in your neighborhood, at a commercial building. What would you need in order to get all of the people that you know are going to need help? Where can we go? And from there, now let's start putting together what the vision's going to be for the upcoming year. What days are you going to serve children? What ages are you going to serve? Where are you going to be? What materials might you want to use? And no, we don't have to have the perfect plan, but if we could at least get some of those ideas that are floating around in our head just onto the piece of paper, we can start putting together a little bit of a blueprint. We call that in if you listen to Teacher Let Your Light Shine podcast or in Microschool Masterminds, it's called our introductory packet. This is our offer on paper of what we can do for your family. So once we get the ideas and we know where we can do it, and sometimes we don't even know where we can do it, Kerry. Like sometimes there are people who have teachers who have parents signing up in faith that they're going to have this teacher or this parent teach their child next year, but they have no idea where they're going to do it at. They just know that the opportunity is there. And then from there, once you get your introductory packet, now you're off to the races. You can either put your feet to the pavement and start delivering it to your friends, to your family, to your neighborhoods, the introductory packet. Now from the introductory packet, that's your heart. That's your heart, that's your mind, that's your vision. That's what you're going to offer families. Now you can create your flyers. Now you can create your promotional materials that can go out on social media. You don't have to have a fancy website. Let's just start with a piece of paper. Let's start with some people, and then let's put that promise on a piece of paper and let's put it out to the world.
Oh, such great advice for getting going from idea to launch. And what do you hear, Mackenzie, from the folks who've done this, who've taken that entrepreneurial leap? What do they say? Has that experience been like for them, becoming entrepreneurs from being kind of traditional classroom teachers?
I would say that they say, I'm not going to go back. I'll do whatever
Mm.
it takes to keep going. I will do whatever it takes to keep going. And that's
Why?
where,
What is it?
when
What is it that you hear from them? What is so special about that experience?
that they didn't have to stay in a place where they felt stifled,
Yeah.
that they are actually able to cultivate inside of themselves, even curiosity and confidence and in students. And once you break free and you feel the freedom, you don't ever want to feel chained again in your mind and going somewhere that you just feel like I'm putting the effort out. I have the momentum, but there's all these rules, regulations, red tape, bureaucracy, and I can't really just do for kids what I want them to do. Let's just say, for an example, a spelling test. Let's say a student is struggling in spelling. This is a mediocre example, but let's say they are struggling in spelling and a teacher is not able to give them a different spelling list because they need to show that they are on grade level with this spelling list. But the child is consistently failing because they have no phonics background. They're in third grade, but yet they're not even, they're kindergarten level.
Mm.
And so now they have to continuously give this assessment to the child. And every week, this little boy, he walks and he turns and he says, I got them all wrong again. And the teacher wants to give him a different spelling test and she wants to give him a different spelling list, but she can't because she has to prove that this is not the right grade level for him so that he can then potentially get tier one or tier two or tier three response to intervention, then possibly get an IEP, be retained. All of this is evidence to show that the child is failing, but she can't give him the medicine to make him better.
Right. And it's demoralizing for the teacher and the student.
Yes. So it's a simple, come here, sweetie. And you give him the piece of paper and you say, okay, maybe five kids in the class in third grade have a seventh grade spelling test. He doesn't know. Five kids in the class have a fifth grade spelling test. He doesn't know, but he's in third grade and he's got a first grade list. And you get to take that piece of paper, and for every word that's in that, every letter that's in that word, you get to put a little blank on the piece of paper. So cat, you get to put three little lines. And now you feel successful. Okay, I know there's three letters. But
Mm.
beforehand, we couldn't do that. We couldn't give individualized attention because we would be potentially manipulating the scores. Where now we're able to give children exactly what they need without feeling as if we have to give any type of account for what it is that they're doing or why they're doing it, because the parents just want to see that their child loves school and that they believe in themselves, and they don't want their kids to get out of school every day feeling as if they're hopeless. And it's not just micro schools and homeschool hybrids, they're not just for kids who struggle.
Right.
Yes, it's a great place for neurodivergent children, but it's also a place for children who love learning and they weren't able to do it, or gifted students who felt they needed to go so much faster, but they were held to the grade level that was too easy for them. Or maybe it's the kid who learns hands-on and he's not good at sitting in a seat all day long with worksheets. There's more time outside. There's more opportunities. Families who say, I want to be able to go on a field trip with my child, but there's only one a year. Now there are so many other opportunities. So I believe that teachers, they feel as if they have the freedom to teach the way that they want and to give the experiences to children. And you'll see behavior problems be almost non-existent. Children who didn't want to go to school, even families who are homeschooling their child, and they're like, they just won't work for me. I don't know what to do, but I don't want to send them. I've sent them to public school, and 3 weeks later, I pulled them back out because it wasn't working. But now they're coming to a place where they can come just a couple days a week and they can still be with mom and dad, or they're able to get what the parents needed so that the parents and the child can have a stronger relationship with one another as well. So it's just a beautiful way. The world needs more teachers who are leading, who are innovating, and creating something that is better.
Well, it's no wonder that microschools and similar models are both the present, as you say, and the future.
Yeah.
It's, of course, these incredibly joyful spaces for both teachers and learners to be at. So, Makenzie, I strongly recommend that my listeners and viewers listen to your podcast, Teacher Let Your Light Shine, and visit the Facebook group to connect with community there. But how else can folks connect with you, work with you, and really get started on their own entrepreneurial path?
Yes, absolutely. I would say the very first part is to listen to the podcast. As you had mentioned, we've got a Facebook group with thousands of teachers and parents. And then head over to our website, teachersletyourlightshine.com. We've got a blog, we have free resources, we have so many tips and strategies and downloadable resources for you to get started right away. And then, of course, you can also take time and book a coaching session. We have Microschool Masterminds, which is an online ecosystem where teachers and parents both are able to, there's 10 modules full of marketing and legalities and your time management and finances and building community. All of that is at your fingertips in Microschool Masterminds. It's courses and downloadables that you can have at any time. And then we also have an online community within Microschool Masterminds. We do group coaching every month, and it's just a really great place to work with people who are in the trenches and are actually getting their ideas into fruition. It's for people who are just now beginning, who haven't even started a micro school, and for those who've had a micro school for 4 or 5 or more years, and they're just wanting to refine and get better and grow and get better as a leader even. And that's Microschool Mastermind. So that's teachersletyourlightshine.com/masterminds.
Such great information, inspiration, plentiful resources for entrepreneurial teachers and parents just starting their journey into launching microschools or similar models. So, what a treat it's been to chat with you, Makenzie Oliver. Thank you so much for being on the LiberatED podcast.
Thank you so much, Kerry.